All right, hello everybody, or just myself. Today is Thursday, November 18th, 2021, and we're going to be going over my day trades today, um, or rather, we're going to be going over the mistakes that I made today, so that way I can do better in the future. Now, what I have up on the screen currently is the NASDAQ overall market. I think I'm going to start every segment with just looking at this, seeing where we're at with the overall market and seeing how far we've come. And that way I can just get more mentally prepared for what's to come and maybe why certain things happened. But uh, let's see. So down here on the bottom, I have a 1 year, 1 day. All right. So each of these candlesticks equate to 1 day of trading. And QQQ, that's the NASDAQ. You can see that I have this linked as 9. These are all linked 9. So that way whatever I type into here will populate to all of these. Um, and up in the top left, I typically have a 15-day, 15-minute, or a 15-day, 5-minute. That can change, but and then typically in the top right, I'll have the 5-day, 1 minute for just today's trading. Um, so today looks like we were off to a rocky start. Morning panic. Seems to have held. Let me zoom in on the top left here. Actually, let me back out. If you look back to these previous days, sort of kind of holding previous resistance here, support here. Um, I might be reading into it a little much, but let me change this to 5 minutes just so I can look at it a little better. Yeah, so we started off, we had a morning panic, and then we had a spike back, or a spike to highs, and another pullback, and now we closed at the highs again. So the overall market, I mean, we're looking, it's just so overextended. But this is my first bull market, and this is a crazy bull market to have a first in. But let's get right into the trades for today. Okay, first trade we have is OSCI. All right, OSCI. So I already have the arrows on this one. Some of them I might not, but I'll be able to go through and add them. So this one, let's see, we had a morning spike here. As you can see, we'll start out with a longer term, and then I'll explain the shorter and shorter terms. So as you can see down here, we have the 1 year, 1 day. I apologize about my dogs, by the way. We have the 1 year, 1 day clear breakout over here on the right. This is today's candle. Clear breakout past approximately, in the 15s mark, 15-cent area. Um, and I believe the news for this today, I think they were just, oh, that's it. They were just, sorry, give me 1 minute here. They were approved for the, I guess, pink sheets. So not, you know, not really great news. Not really news at all. I mean, OTC here, these are the worst companies that you can have or that can be. So, um, anyways, morning spike. This ramped up from 10 to 35. That is a 250% increase, give or take. Um, I drew this resistance level, or I drew this orange line here because you could see it 1, 2, 3 triple topped here. Um, and as it came down, I obeyed my rules of not trading before 10:30. So 10:30, I was looking at this. I saw that it was testing it again. I wanted to pull back, and I got it. So let me zoom in here. Um, so zoom in a little bit more. So let's see. 1054. Let me make sure these are the right. They are not the right trades. I traded this multiple times. Give me 1 minute. I apologize. So I initially traded this at 1054. 1054 is right here. So I was assuming, or I was thinking that these gaps in between these bottoms were getting smaller here, and I thought that we might see a bottom at VWAP. So I bought here, and my risk was VWAP, and I ended up selling at 1057, right on this candle here, and that's where I sold. So I took a 4% loss on that, a little bit more than I would have liked to take. Um, but I think what this really comes down to is should I have should I have been trading this at all? Um, it's just a tough one. I mean, small losses are acceptable, um, but if I waited a little, really hindsight 2020, but really what I could have done is just sold into this pop and taken a small gain. There's no need for me to hold and have it break VWAP like this, although I get why I did it. That's not really too bad. Small losses are okay. 4%, that's a little high for me. I don't really like losing more than 3, but you know, I'm learning, and I also want to try and give these a little bit more time, but as you can see today, I was just not a great day for me. So let me take those off. That was my first trade. Just bought here. Let me see a little bit more. So this line is VWAP here, volume weighted average price. I bought on the first green candle, sold into a crack of VWAP. That's basically the first trade. Second trade, I bought in again at this same ticker, OSCI, at 1108. My problem with this trade, this second trade of the day, is that I bought into strength, and that's a really difficult habit for me to break. Let me adjust the volume here. That's a very difficult habit for me to break, not buying into strength, because it's so counterintuitive to what I would think. But I bought into the strength regardless. I thought that it reclaimed VWAP, and I thought that we would see an early push, perhaps. Now, if I had originally taken into account the news catalyst that drove this stock, and seeing that it wasn't a great news catalyst, and also that this is a gold company, and I don't really like trading commodities. Not a lot of day traders like trading commodities like gas, oil, or oil rather, and gold, things of that nature, because they trade very oddly. But I bought here, and I believe I sold this. I gave this one 10 minutes. Also with a risk of VWAP, because sometimes these things can just hold. And as soon as I started seeing here these lower highs, let me do a little trend line. You know, as soon as I started seeing these lower highs, I took it off right here. Just a rough day for me today. Not that I've had any great days necessarily, but so I took it off here for a small 2.43% loss. Much more manageable loss for me. Um, but that's my second trade. I I don't see how I could have traded that differently. Maybe not have traded it because cash is a good position to have, or no position is a good position to have. But if it did hold VWAP, you know, maybe I could have added and, you know, but let me remove this trend line here. But losses are acceptable. It's cutting the losses quickly that is the big problem. We'll move on to my third trade, and I did something a little different. I traded a NASDAQ company today. It's VOSO, and as you can see, let's see, VOSO. I'm trying to find the news catalyst. for this stock. Um, I don't want to take up too much time just looking for these news catalysts, but what I do want to do is make sure that I look at the catalysts prior to buying. That's a problem that I have. I don't look at the catalysts enough, but I need to start. Um, so if we look at this 1 year, 1 day, um, you could see that obviously this was today. Um, Massive volume. I mean, what we had 45 million compared to 3.5 million. Um, so right out of the gate, pre-market, or excuse me, aftermarket, it started spiking. Pre-market, it kind of held those gains, and we'll zoom into the day here. Let me zoom in to this run up. So I bought this initially at 11:44 because I don't trade before 10:30. Yesterday was a hiccup, or a mistake for me. I shouldn't say hiccup. So I was sitting down around this time. Um, I don't know where I started seeing this stock, but at 11:44, let me see here. I believe, yeah, it was in here. At 11:44, okay, I witnessed this ramp up here, and I noticed how it did not break VWAP anytime as this was uptrending. And actually, let me, now that I'm looking at this, oh, would you look at that little trend line there? Not, it's not perfect, but it is something to kind of keep an eye on. And at 11:44, right in here, let me zoom in, right up here. This is where I bought, right in this candle here. Now, my plan with this was to hold all day, but if the trend kept going. But I did not want, oh, apologize, that is my Google Home. I wanted to hold this all day if the trend continued. But since I don't trade NASDAQs and they get choppy, I lasted 4 minutes. Story of my life, right? So I actually sold it right in here. And let me, all right. So I sold it right there. I had 4 minutes and I made 4.4%. So with this trade, I basically wiped out my original 4% loss. I made 4.4%, and because this was NASDAQ, I didn't have to pay commissions, which is nice. Unfortunately, my trades from this point on go downhill, and I believe I just overtraded. Um, Also, what I could have done was continued to watch, and if I it's kind of tough to hindsight trade, but I obviously could have held this, um, and it would have never broken my risk. My risk would have been VWAP as VWAP continued up, and it would have never broken my risk. As you'll see, I took a couple more trades in here, and they were losses because I was anticipating something like this. So I'll go ahead and get rid of these. That was my third trade. I made 4.5%, just under 4.5%. Um, let's see here. Okay. Now we'll move on to my fourth trade of the day. I bought in at 12:03 again. This was another problem. Remember how I said I buy into strength and that's not a good thing? That's what I did again. I bought into strength. Um, I got in at 16. I got in at the bottom of this mid candle, 65, um, and was anticipating a little bit more of a pop. I wanted to see this breakout past to this level. Um, and that's the problem when you buy not close to a support level. I mean, this is pretty close, but like I said, I'm not used to trading NASDAQs. I'm not used to how choppy they are. Um, and as soon as it failed here, I kind of lost sight of it because this here started putting in lower highs. I got nervous. I thought it was going to crack to the downside. So I sold right in here. Not a good trade. At this point, I'm just over trading. I wouldn't say over trading. I would say I'm being impatient and not waiting for the ideal entry. So I sold here and I took a small 1.6% loss. You know, acceptable. That's an acceptable loss. It ended up being like under $3. Um, and then we'll move on to my next trade because I traded this again. I traded this again. Can you believe it? And could you also believe that I missed this spike, like I said before? Um, that's my biggest problem. So I sold that previous one at 1207, and guess when I bought the next one? 1208. So I bought right in here because I wanted my average a little lower. But that's the problem with buying strength, or being impatient. I was impatient, sold for a loss. I was impatient again because I entered. I thought that this could hold, and I just wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't see the big picture at this point. I was just trying to trade to make a quick buck, and that's not how trading works. Trading works when you have a plan. Not that I know firsthand, but I'm seeing that the more that you study, more effort you put in, and the better that your plan is, and the better that you stick to your plans, the better odds of your success in the long run. So I got in here and I sold it. Would you believe it? 2 minutes later, right in here. Let's see. Now, why would I do that? I wish I could answer that. I wish I could answer why I just wasn't patient enough to hold that. I did not trade this again. That was my last trade on this one. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes later, this stock spiked up, and that would have been a nice little, what's that? Let's say 1650 to 19. Let's see what that is. Nice 15% bounce if I just held my original position and maybe even added down here. I would have made a nice 15 to 18%, give or take. Not that I would have held this whole way. Maybe I would have. But I just have to be more patient with my entries. I have to be more patient. As I said in the video yesterday, these videos are more so for me. They're for my journey. They're for me to reflect on what I did incorrectly throughout the day. So if I'm repeating myself, it's just because I feel like I haven't drilled it into my thick skull enough yet. Because I just keep making mistakes. Although this will come in time. Get rid of this trend line. I'll get rid of it. Yeah, so me being impatient and just not waiting for an ideal entry. I mean, this right here, I would have been pretty scared to buy here just because I would think that this seems like cracking to the downside. But at the same time, I mean, you could have your risk right here. I mean, previous resistance, support, support. I mean, if it cracks that, just get out and take your what would that be? That'd be 16, 15, 5. Yeah, take your 3% loss. I mean, that's not huge, but I mean, 3% for 3% or 15, 18%, I'll take that any day. Unfortunately, I didn't today. All right, we're going to move into LGVN. That is my next trade. LGVN. And I believe that's my final trade because I got sick to my stomach on this one and I still have the arrows, so perfect. Let me see here. Let's see. So the news on this one, oh, sorry, it popped up in the wrong screen here. The news on this one, let's see, I thought it came out earlier than that. Let me see. Here we go. Gets US FDA's rare pediatric disease designation for LOM-cell B in infant heart conditions. Shares surge early. That came out at 9:49, and it's not the news that comes out. As I'm learning, it is the response to the news that matters. So 9:49. The stock was moving a little bit beforehand, but what happened? It dipped to VWAP and ramped. Um, so I was watching this throughout the day while I was trading. What was it there? While I was trading VOSO, and I saw this here. Um, and let me get rid of the afternoon so it doesn't. Let me do that. So I saw this here where it ramped, and then what I thought was consolidation at above this $8 mark. What I thought was consolidation was actually it putting in higher lows. And I acknowledge that it was putting in higher lows, but let me show you how I got trapped in this trade. I might have zoomed in a little bit too far there. Um, I like keeping I don't zoom in too far because if you zoom in too far, like if I were to just zoom in here, it kind of distorts how, in my mind, how the chart looks in actuality. Um, so $8 was the risk level. If it cracked 8, I was going to sell. Um, two mistakes. I shouldn't just say two. I'm sure there are many more mistakes than I could name. First, it was holding this $8 level, but it did, let's see here, it put in a double top at 858, give or take, triple top if you count this top wick, and then came down to 837 and topped here, here, and pretty much here, 830s, 840, and down to here, topped at 830. Now, I should have noticed that, and what I should have done is probably just sold because it did not. I was hoping this might coil and spring up. But instead, what I wanted to practice because of my last trade was patience and adding into weakness because, like I said before, I constantly buy into strength. This one I bought into weakness. Ironically, I originally bought here at 1238, small position on this one because I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I added again here, small position again, because I liked that it bottomed again, bottomed, quote unquote, at 8. And then it cracked and it dropped all the way to under 6. Typically during this, I would sell immediately, but I've been watching people trade and I wanted to actually see if it could crack down since we were close to this level here and bounce. And I would have sold into the bounce. So what I did was, let me see, that's a little bit distorted, but you'll get the idea. I bought, added, it cracked, and then as soon as I thought it bottomed, I bought again just to bring my average down a little bit more. And then I thought we were going to have a little bit more of a bounce, but it didn't really crack that hard, so a bounce isn't really expected. Um, and that's why I sold my entire position at, I believe, 704. That was a horrible trade. Horrible trade. I should not have added here. I should have seen these signs, and I should have sold. And I would have spared myself from this. And I would have taken a nice little, what would that have been? You know, 8. My original position was 818 to $8. So that would have been, what, 2%? I would have lost 2% on this trade here. And instead, I cumulatively lost 9%. That is unacceptable to me. I don't like I keep saying, I don't like taking losses over 3.5%. Really, 3.5? 4 is just too much for me. This is unacceptable. After I took this trade, I stepped away for a little bit. I realized that excuse me, I realized I was over trading. Um, and perhaps this market environment isn't best for over trading. You know, this isn't 2020 anymore, and it's not early 2021. So to summarize, I mean, I ended up taking 6 trades today, 1 win, 5 losses, and it just wasn't a great day for me today. Uh, it's tough for me to make these videos, especially since I started um, on what are my what have been my 2 worst days since I've been trading. But I have to be honest with myself. Trading is something that is something that you have to do. I have to be honest with myself and my problems, and I have to. The point of this video series is so I can talk it out with myself and try to figure out what I can do better. And what I'm seeing right now is, and obviously we'll look into LGVN here a little bit more. Um, I was just too early, you know. I was too early. I wouldn't have traded this. I was looking at this right before it broke out here, and I saw it reclaim VWAP. I just didn't want to trade it because a stock that can drop $1 in a minute, I'm really, I don't know, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth here, especially because I got caught in it. Um, and you can see that it did the same type of thing here. Yeah, it has those nice spikes, but getting caught, that's not something that's fun. Um, but I saw it reclaim VWAP here. I could have taken this pop if I really wanted to, but I just wasn't feeling it. Um, it's later on in the day. I didn't know how this was going to react. Um, but that's basically it for my trades today. Um, let's see. I will be uploading another video tomorrow going over my trades if I make any because I have to work on my overtrading problem. And this weekend, um, I'm going to start doing a weekly video or a weekly trade recap where I go over my best and worst trades again, even though they're done in the daily. And then I might explain my setup here a little bit more. I mean, if you're not new to trading, then this doesn't really matter. You know how everything is, or excuse me. If you're not new to trading, then you know what these things are already. Um, I have time and sales here, and that's actually trading because this is NASDAQ and it trades post-market. Level 2, time and sales, news, volume, etc. So I could go over my setup, but that's basically it in my little studies here. Where previous day close, VWAP, and then the orange is just where I actually draw. Um, as you can see here, I drew this starting at this level because it seems to have a lot of these daily candles hit or have been in this range. And this one's not perfect, but none of this is perfect, and that's tough for me to understand. But if you were to look at this intraday and see where that orange landed, look at this. Support, support, resistance, support-ish, ended up being resistance, support, resistance. And this has started about a year ago. Over years ago, excuse me, not even a year ago. Um, so these lines, these price levels clearly have some influence over the stocks. The stocks remember. But enough of my rambling. This video has gone on for a whopping 28 minutes, and I've wanted to keep these lower than 10. But it is what it is, especially when you overtrade and do 6 trades in a day. I hope everybody has a good day, and I will catch you guys tomorrow, hopefully with some better news, and hopefully maybe even without trading. That would be nice. If I don't make trades, I'll record as to why I did not, and we could talk about some of the hot stocks that were moving that day, and by that day I mean tomorrow. Anyway, have a good night. Talk to you guys later. Thank you.